Hello, everyone. Ryan here again, and I'm very glad to be with you today. Um, as many of you know, the sanctuary itself has a principle of 10 pillars, and they are uh, important principles to our life. They're not just theories; they're things that we practice in a way that we have to live, uh, because we have found that they are a roadmap to a relationship with God that helps solve our problems in life, gives us hope and faith, allows us to accept the grace of Jesus Christ, allows us to accept God's love and understanding, and helps us work towards the kingdom of heaven and to be a part of that spirit world rather than just being stuck here in the flesh world. Um, and I'm hoping that through time, other people continue to add little videos of how they practice these principles and practice these pillars in their life. I'm going to share with you how I do so on a daily basis and why it's important. So, just as a refresher, the 10 pillars of the sanctuary are surrender, faith, confession, responsibility, humility, obedience, restoration, awareness, communion, and service. And the first one that I'm going to talk about today, the first pillar is surrender. And how that's listed in our charter and in our principles is that we lay down our self reliance and need for control, acknowledging their failure and our desire to seek spiritual principles. So, the reason why this one is really important is because as a lot of you know, one of the things that Christ said is to be his disciple, we need to deny ourselves, pick up our cross, and follow him. And in one of the gospels, it's listed as daily, right? Deny yourself daily, pick up your cross daily, and follow him daily. And so this principle of surrender is one that I do daily. And the reason being is because I wake up in the mornings and I am kind of stuck in my animal brain. My first thoughts are my back hurts, the house is too hot, too cold, there's nobody here. Why isn't my wife, singing a song to me in the morning? I need something to drink, I need something to eat, I got to go to the bathroom. I wake up crabby. I wake up full of self. I wake up full of self centered feelings, ideas, needs, and stuff. And they block me immediately from any type of spiritual connection with God. And, we believe that what Christ is asking us to deny is not our worth and not our life and not our actual being, our spirits, ourself, the thing that makes us, right? He's not asking me to deny Ryan. He's asking me to deny my ego, my self-importance, my need to be right and to make others wrong, my need to be the most important person in the room, my need to self-justify, my selfishness, my self-centeredness, and my fear. All these things are based in the world, right? Especially fear. There's no fear in the realm of the Spirit. There's no fear in the Holy Spirit, and there's no fear in the kingdom of God, in the kingdom of heaven. Christ himself said, don't be afraid. How many times? 365 times in some translations. So immediately when I wake up in the morning and I feel all this crabbiness and I feel all this stuff, it reminds me to surrender this stuff to God and say, "Oh, once again, I'm all concerned about me, right? Um, uh, I don't have a big enough car, I don't, or a big enough house. I don't have a good enough car. I don't have this. I don't have the clothes I want. I don't have the things I want. Don't have enough money, right? And I spent my life pursuing everything that this world had to offer to try and make myself feel whole and feel complete. And I figured, well, if I just had more money, I'd be happy. And then there was a time in my life I had plenty of money to do whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted, pretty much. And it didn't make me happy. And well, if I just had a nice big house and a swimming pool, and at one time in my life, I had those things, and they were gorgeous and they were beautiful and it was wonderful, and I got to share it with others and stuff like that. But my reliance on money and my reliance on having things failed. They didn't ultimately fulfill me. What they did is they gave me a sense for a few moments that, oh, this is good and this is great, because it is good and great. I mean, it is nice, right? It's nice to have a good meal, right? But eventually we become hungry again. And the same is true with our spirit and our soul. So um, then there was a period of time in my life, it's like, well, I had chased women, right? The more women I had, the more it made me feel like a man, and and I was someone important and whatnot. And that, of course, failed, and it failed horribly because not only did it hurt and damage other people, it hurt and damaged myself, right? And so that failed. And then it was like, well, prestige. If I was famous or people knew who I was, or I'd get on stage and I'd play music, and people would praise me and say, "Oh, you're great," and all this stuff. Well, that'll make me feel fulfilled and whole, right? And of course, once again, it's a wonderful experience to get out on stage and to perform music, especially with others, right? And bands have a very special bond with each other. And you get out there knowing that you're giving the audience an hour or two of life away from their problems, and they can listen to music, right? So there's all this beautiful stuff to it. But if my reliance is that, I'm not good enough unless people are praising me, and I'm not good enough unless I have a lot of lovers, and I'm not good enough unless I have a big car, and I'm not, or a nice car, and I'm not good enough unless I have a big house, and I'm not good enough unless I have a lot of money, um, none of that will ever result in joy in the end. And we've heard this story thousands of times over again. The businessman that spent his entire life amassing a giant fortune. Uh, Solomon talks about those kind of things. And they were all in vain. It was just so he could see them. And you can only see him when you look at him once, right? And the next time you see him, you look at him. There's no lasting fulfillment there. There's no lasting joy and peace. And we end up laying in our deathbeds going, my kids don't know me, and my wife doesn't care about me, and I never made any real friends, and I never had anybody that actually loved me. I just pursued money my whole life, and still here I am dying, and all these other great things in life never happened, and I feel empty, right? And so I didn't have all the biggest and greatest of anything, but I had enough to learn the lesson that those things could never ultimately fulfill the actual issue of feeling whether I was enough or not. And the problem is I wake up every morning and I immediately have this mental state within inside me of those needs. I need food, I need drink, I need money, I need this, I need that, I got bills to pay, I got fears, I got all sorts of stuff bombarding me. All seem very legit on the earth, right? We do have these problems, but they separate me from faith and trust in God, and direct me to be self-reliant. And I spent my life being self-reliant. I had my own ideas of what I thought would make me happy, and in the end, they didn't make me happy. I had my own ideas of what I thought would make me righteous, and in the end, they didn't make me righteous. I was just pretending. I was acting. Even though I believed in those principles, I didn't know how to do those principles, and I wasn't allowing God to present those principles through me. I was doing it my way. Well, this is what I think is right and wrong, and this is how I interpret Scripture and all that other kind of stuff, and so therefore this will make me a righteous person. And I would go out and present that to everybody, and all of it was a lie because it wasn't actually God's message. It was my message based on the fact that I needed you to accept me, and I needed you to validate me, right? Because once again, I wasn't enough. So some of us have big issues in our life. We have things like addictions. We have things like alcoholism, drug addiction, sex addiction, money addiction, gambling addiction, shopping addiction, food addictions. We have things that are controlling our life. And no matter how much good effort we put into trying to solve those problems legitimately, ultimately, all of us find at some point in our lives that we cannot champion our fears without God's help. I can't fix what has gone wrong in my brain with the brain where something has gone wrong, right? I need outside help. And that outside help has to come from a place that is greater, stronger, more powerful, more accepting than whatever my problem is, right? And I've had extreme fears in my life. The fear of not being good enough, not being a good enough boyfriend, not being a good enough husband, not being a good enough brother, not being a good enough friend, not being a good enough father, and not being a good enough grandfather. These things enter my mind immediately upon awakening in the mornings. And so therefore, the first thing I do in the morning is surrender all these defective parts of myself that just go on in my brain and will go on in my brain until the day I die, probably, because that's why this needs to go into the grave, so that the life in us, the spirit in us, the thing that makes us who we actually are, the person who doesn't want to lie, not the person lying, but the person observing it going, why did I lie? I don't want to lie. What am I afraid of? That's who we are. The person lying is the human being, right? And we in the sanctuary can't seem to get past our defective and broken parts within us without God's help. And we've come to accept the fact that they are broken, or they are just a condition. However we want to see it, it's a condition by which I have to accept about myself. It's like losing a foot, right? I have to accept that I lost a foot in order to be able to get help and a replacement foot and a way to walk again, or wear shoes or whatever. And if I pretend they don't exist and I put on this mask that everything's okay and I'm just fine and da 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 da, I have this need then to control everything. Because see, if I am self-reliant and deep down inside all my life this has failed, then I have to control how you see me. I have to control what you believe of me. I have to control your opinions about me. And I have to control your behavior towards me. So then once again, I have to be king. I have to, dictate how you are. I have to set the record straight with you. I have to do all these things where we're constantly fighting and we're constantly arguing, or there's contention in one way or the other, no matter how nice it comes out. It could just seem like a friendly negotiation, but really it's a one-up, well, I'm trying to let this person know that they're not going to get to me, right? There's this need to perform. And that's the same need that most religions have taught us rather than the grace of God. They have taught us that we have to perform, we have to act, we have to do certain rituals and certain things in a proper way, in the way that has been decided by others for us. Otherwise, we don't qualify for their church or their religion, right? And so they have these beautiful traditions and these beautiful rituals and these beautiful things they do, and they're not even really enjoying them. And they're wonderful, right? Just go to any church and see how they function, right? Like, oh, we light candles and we do this, we do that. And it's like, it's all this beautiful stuff meant to develop a worship of God and meant to bring us closer to God. And yet, since, most of us, like myself, have this idea that I have to be there and I have to be present, I have to do this, and I'm pretending. Because I haven't fully committed myself to God, I have committed myself to trying to manage my own life and manage the outcomes in my own life. And somewhere along the line, all of these things failed in such a way that I knew it was insane. I knew I was insane. I kept doing the same things over and over again, expecting a different result. Just another pair of shoes, another guitar, another one. And then I'd feel happy for a moment. And then 2 days later, I'm back to not being happy. And so we start with this first pillar of surrender. Because I realize that my self-will, my ideas, my beliefs, my interpretations have failed me. I have spent my life playing God. I have decided what is right, what is wrong, what is good, what is bad, how I should be, how you should be, how you should see me, how others should respect me. I was controlling everything and judging everything based on a set of ideas that I myself came up with in order to hide and mask the fact that underneath all of them was fear, because they were all based on fear, right? We go outside, we dress ourselves a certain way. We go to a function, we dress ourselves a certain way. Why? Not everybody's afraid, but some of us, because, we're afraid that, we're not going to look right. We have to look right. I have to look this way and dress this way and act this way and stuff like that for society to accept me, right? And those are the ways of the world. Those are the ways of the flesh. And we do have to live in it, but we don't have to live in it burdened by the laws of it. This is what Jesus Christ gave to us. He gave us a way out of the law of the earth and the law of the world. I still have to deal with gravity and all that other kind of stuff, but I don't have to live in this fantasy that I have to perform in order to qualify. He gave us grace. He let us know God the Father accepted us as we are and wanted us to have life and life more abundantly, and wanted us to know joy, and wanted us to know peace. And he gave these things to us so that we would have them. And so it was God who accepted me because I couldn't accept myself. And of course I couldn't accept myself because all my judgments that I put on the world and everyone else, I myself could not live up to. How could any of us? So I was judging them and I was judging me. And I'll tell you what, this is how the human mind works. Anytime I judge someone, I always find them wrong. I always find them guilty, and I always punish them in one way or the other. Either I ignore them, I avoid them, I gossip about them, I talk about them, I do these things. Those are just the normal functions of the human brain, like any other animal. Right? That would have consciousness on the levels we do. And no amount of human power ever seemed to solve this. I went through therapies, I went to counseling, I went to all sorts of other kind of stuff. Got great ideas from wonderful people who had education, knowledge, wisdom. They shared all this stuff. It allowed me to contemplate it. I would practice the things that they would say. Ultimately, it still all failed because of the core foundation that I was running a life based on self-will, self-reliance, self-belief, self-faith, when I myself couldn't believe in myself because all of it was designed to hide the fears I had in my life that I wasn't good enough, nor could I ever be. What God gives us is an ability to be satisfied today with what we have today. And so in the morning, I practice the first pillar of surrender. I lay down my self-reliance and need for control. I acknowledge their failure, and it puts me in a place where I desire to seek God and seek spiritual principles to be the answer to these deficits and these defects of my physical life, the limitations of my intellect, the limitations of my emotional maturity, the limitations of my experience. Because I can't ever be a good enough husband judging myself about whether I'm a good enough husband or not. I'll never be one. I'll never be able to enjoy being a husband. And the pain of that gets so bad, I have to start judging my wife. She's making me unhappy. She's not doing this. She's not doing that. She's not giving me enough. She's not sharing enough. She's not opening up enough. Da, 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 you know, I start blaming other people for the deficits of my own life. And I can't see her, and I can't see the beauty of her, and I can't see the beautiful life in her. All I see is somebody who is not doing and performing in the way that I have dictated in myself they should do, because I have a deficit that they somehow have to pay for. Christ paid for it all. And we can step into the world. We can step into the kingdom of heaven. We can step into the world and the realm of the Spirit, where that life, that experience, and that perspective is above and greater than and wiser and smarter and more intelligent and more emotionally secure and more understanding and more profound than anything that mankind has to offer. And I just mean the ways of man. I don't mean other human beings. Other human beings are children of God just like the rest of us. And they have a ton to offer. Their life experience is valuable. And it is not meant to be in vain. The pains and sorrows people have been through have value, and it's not meant to be in vain. And the successes and the champions that people have had in their life have value, and they're not meant to be in vain. Christ is the only one for me. God is the only one for me that has allowed me to understand this and to see this and to accept this and to acknowledge it not only in myself but in others. So how I simply surrender in a day, in the morning. And I do a simple prayer, and it doesn't have to be this prayer specifically. It could be whatever you feel in yourself works for you in acknowledging that you aren't enough. You'll never be enough. The world isn't enough. It'll never be enough. It will never ultimately satisfy that drive within. Some people call it a God-sized hole, and we can't put enough into it to replace what's missing. But even those who don't believe in God or believe in spirit can acknowledge their psychological and their emotional life something's missing, and they're constantly pursuing it, and they're wanting to find something that'll fit in there. For me, that was God. That was actually a place reserved for God. That my reliance was supposed to be on God. My faith that I will be cared for and my needs will be cared for were supposed to be on God, not on having enough money or having enough clothes or how I appeared, how I looked. Not by the dictates of the world. It will always fail. So I surrender this stuff to God. I surrender these fears to God. And I acknowledge that I don't know what to do of myself. I have all these ideas, but they've all failed all throughout my life. So I say a simple prayer. I say, God, I offer myself to thee to build with me and do with me as you will. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do your will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those that I would help. Of your power, your love, and your way of life, may I do your will always. And I do this every single day. And I do this sometimes multiple times in a day. But you know what? The prayer could be, I give up. God, help me. God, I need help. God, don't let, sometimes I say to God, don't let me do the thinking today, because I will, I tell God, you know what? You need to do the thinking for me today, or I'm going to, right? And then as soon as I do that prayer, something shifts. And I'm no longer thinking about my wants and my needs and my desires and my this and my that. They're still there. And they're still important. But suddenly I'm thinking about my wife's needs, my kids' needs. I think about my brother. I think about my friends. It puts me in a position to where I am ready and able to be of service to mankind and to God, because I'm now an open channel to God to direct my day and to guide me today where he would like me to go and be of service in the way he would like me to be. And that could be as simple as smiling and saying hello to a clerk at a store who's having a rough day. I don't need to preach at them. I need to show them and be an example of love. And God gives me the ability to do that by just saying, hey, how you doing today? Good to see you. Haven't seen you here in a while, to let them know they matter. God gives us the power to do that. Even though we still have our problems, in our life that we have to live. So surrender is the first pillar of the sanctuary. And I invite anybody who's a part of the sanctuary or anybody who just wants to contribute they can upload a video also and talk about how they practice this principle in their life. Because like I said, for me, it's a choice I have to make. But if I don't make that choice, then everyone around me and myself has to deal with my instinct and my id and my ego all day. And it's not worth it. It's not worth it to them, and it's not worth it to me. I would much rather they get introduced to my spirit, connected to God's Spirit, the Holy Spirit, connected to life, because that is how we transmit life, is by being connected to God. And then all the other things in the world we get to enjoy wonderfully without them being required. They once again become a blessing. The new pair of shoes is awesome. The meal we had is awesome, and we're grateful for it, and we're thankful for it, and it means so much to us. And we realize that all these things are given to us by God, and it wasn't because I earned it, and I pursued it, and I chased it, and I did this. Because when it's all about me, it'll never be enough. Surrender is the first pillar. And that is one of the ways that I surrender. We could talk about this for weeks. But that is why this is a pillar in the sanctuary, and an important pillar, because from there springs forth all the other pillars where God's power can function through me rather than my power trying to act like I have faith and I'm honest and I'm responsible. I actually get to experience honesty and faithfulness and those kind of things through the power of God that is dwelling within me in that day, because I surrendered myself and denied myself and picked up my cross, which is the life that I have to lead. It is those burdens. I'm accountable to the burdens of my brokenness, right? And I follow Jesus. That I have found fulfills me and gives something to me that is everlasting and wonderful. Thank you for letting me share today. I love you. We'll talk soon.